Okay.
I did it.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
Priyanka. So today is February 18th. For Node Readiness Controller discussion, we are having it on a different Zoom because the SIG Node meeting setup couldn't be started. Anyway, um, first I wanted to start off with some item I have discussed with some of the SIG auto scaling folks. Um, so right now we have the readiness controller mechanism like bootstrap, make the nodes like bootstrap with taints, and then the controller will lift the bootstrap taints, like the initial taints once the condition updates are received, right? Um, this could be a problem with cluster autoscaler on certain scenarios. For example, if a component, if a readiness component takes long time for readiness taint to be matched, like if it takes like long time to report its readiness condition, cluster autoscaler would not know that, like whether this taint would be removed later or not. So this basically it's not a bug. It's just like cluster autoscaler doesn't have visibility into whether um, some some event would happen in the future or not. So basically, like uh, how it cluster autoscaler works is that it would simulate a node being ready, node is available, the node capacity is available, and try to match the pods into the capacity. Since that cannot happen, it just like runs the same. I'm not sure if it runs the same code or it just runs the same logic, a scheduler, to see whether the scheduler is able to fit the workload or the pod on the available node capacity. Let's say like if node is scaling and new node comes up, but this time because the user configured to start with, like register with taints, like kubelet configuration, because like they want to ensure that the taint is applied at the beginning of the node bootstrap, not wanting for the controller to patch the taint to avoid the race condition. That's a standard practice in Kubernetes today, um, working with any taint management controller. So the node now comes up with the readiness taint. However, the component that's gonna patch it, if say like it's doing a lot of things, installing some other um, some other like APT or some network dependency, and if it is like a, let's say like 30 minutes delay, cluster autoscaler would no way to know that at the end of 30 minutes the taint would go away or not. So there is like two aspects that need to be done for this in cluster autoscaler to work with any taint management mechanism. There is some support. I think like I mentioned this in Arnab's, um, I think Slack thread regarding working with Cilium. Cluster autoscaler has um, it has a configurable field like for managing startup taints like this. It's called a startup taint, where you can pause a taint. So cluster autoscaler would know that it should wait for some time before considering the node is not available for capacity. It won't necessarily wait for a wait and check. I'm not very familiar with that, but it wouldn't basically scale up right away, deciding the current available capacity is not possible. It would basically give some time for the next scale up or adding more nodes um, for filling the pod demand. So we need to capture this documentation. If cluster autoscaler needs to work with node readiness controller, um, sorry, excuse me for that, node readiness controller, then cluster autoscaler would need to uh, basically like be passed to the readiness taint. Now this would be like an extra step for the cluster admin because they are already configuring node readiness rule, and every time a readiness rule is created, the cluster autoscaler cannot be restarted. So I suggested we could patch because um, we have a mechanism. We have a at least like a predicate, which is not true today, but it will be like the PR will be merged. We check for a prefix. All the readiness taints are expected to carry a fixed prefix that we expect as unique, readiness.kh.io, right? It's a domain prefix. We could suggest to make a code change in cluster autoscaler to understand this prefix as a temporal taint. So any taint that carries this readiness.kh.io prefix would not be considered as like a blocking or permanent taint. It's a temporary taint because readiness is expected to be satisfied. Now that comes the next question, right? So that's the one code change we need to make. I suggested auto scaling folks that we will bring this discussion, we'll create an issue and we'll bring this discussion to SIG auto scaling and see how we could make this code change. And they were they were happy to consider. They understand that like as more adoption comes in, this would be a operator pain. And yeah, like I said, like the follow-up question to that would be, what if a component fails? What if the readiness condition never happens? Then what would be the implication for cluster auto scaling, right? Um, so to answer to that question, startup taints are not like forever. They have a timeout, like 15 minutes, which is hard coded today. So for 15 minutes, it would check if the capacity was like, recovered or if the capacity met the needs. If not, it would anyway go for the scale up. It looks like there was logic, it was there. I tried to go through the code, and I also suggested them that like this could be a configurable field, like a user uh, cluster with cluster autoscaler provision and readiness requirement. If the user had like, let's say like more than 15 minutes, if they have a necessity to have like multiple conditions and the conditions may be like one after the other, this could be a bit more flexible. um, I think that may not happen right away, but we have to also create an issue to follow up on that, to make this as a flag or something, so that like cluster autoscaler could accept this as an argument and make user configure how long to like wait for the next scale up. So these two would help us make the integration with node readiness controller and cluster autoscaler integration smoother. Now the question comes now, okay, does cluster autoscaler not work with node readiness controller today, right? To answer that question, so imagine the worst case, the startup taint is not paused. So cluster autoscaler would think, okay, the existing node capacity is not enough, and it would create an additional node. But then the previous node would eventually come like with readiness met, and the capacity is now available. So cluster autoscaler will scale down a redundant capacity. But the thing is, it would go to a time window where unnecessary scaling even happened. So that would have like cost implications. Like it could be avoided if this like it's handled. So that's like basically um, the understanding I have, at least on the cluster autoscaler, and that seems like something we need to bring up to SIG autoscaling and see how we could smoothen this out. So we probably would need to create an issue and follow up on this. Um, we will look into it likely in the upcoming weeks. But does anyone have any thoughts on that, or anything they have observed working with cluster autoscaler? Anyone before? It's news to me because I'm really not familiar with cluster autoscaler. I haven't looked into their code before. Yeah, Priyanka.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I know what cluster autoscaler is, but that's about it. I don't know how it works behind the scenes. Few questions. So just to repeat what I understood. So how you are explaining is, with node readiness controller today, if we bootstrap a cluster and our workload nodes are tainted, meaning they are not ready right now, right away to schedule any workload pods. So for cluster autoscaler means the node does not have capacity and it will then spin up more nodes. Uh, that is what we are talking right now, and that is a waste of resources because the reason why our node is not scheduling workload is because we are waiting for certain
Yeah,
components to come up, not because our node does not have capacity, but that
exactly.
is not what cluster autoscaler understand today. The second thing is we are proposing, or at least like soft proposal to start a PR is
Yeah,
to make cluster autoscaler understand just the readiness.gators.io things. And then
yeah,
if it sees any node with those things, then treat them differently. Treat them like how you are treating
yeah.
any nodes right now. Don't treat them that way. Wait for I don't know. Yeah, treat them differently, and that is what we'll figure out how that treatment will be. Um,
Yeah, just
as
to
a PR.
add to that, the so this is so this is configurable, right? The startup taint. Each taint needs to be added into the startup taint, or all the taints need to carry a startup taint dot cluster autoscaler. They have their own prefix. Either one of these should match. So I think that what I'm trying to solve is avoid this configuration requirement, because we know that all the readiness taints will take the readiness prefix. So basically hard code this so that like user is not expected to configure this manually. So all the readiness taints would be visible to the cluster autoscaler. That's a thought I have. Yeah.
I just have a follow-up question
Mm,
and absolutely no basis for it, but just want to. Do you think what we are doing with MAP right now for the mutating admission policies with mutating our all demon sets with that toleration, matching toleration, something like that we can do to auto inject startup
mm.
taints?
That's a good question. So, what I am hearing is that, like, what if the pods already have the tolerations injected? Then the pods would not be stopped by doesn't need basically like a cluster autoscaler blocking. It's already unblocked. That's what I'm hearing, right? But the thing is that uh, the tolerations are injected only on the daemon set pods, right? So if the user has, for example, they have GPU operator need to be GPU, some driver needs to be installed, and the component takes basically like 20 minutes to come up. So the the operator would add the tolerations only on the daemon set installing the GPU daemon set, not on, for example, a TensorFlow pod or workload. And it doesn't need to cluster autoscaler doesn't need to create two GPU nodes, because it would think that first node didn't come up, so I'm going to create one more uh, just because it had a GPU waiting to be ready taint. So I think that tolerations is for the daemon sets to bypass this. For cluster autoscaler to bypass this, there is no toleration, because toleration only works at the pod level. Cluster autoscaler doesn't consider tolerations separately.
Um, Yeah, I don't know what cluster autoscaler consider, but I was wondering, can we use mutating admission policy to tolerate? I mean, tolerate is the wrong word. To
Oh,
provide
got it.
cluster autoscaler, whatever maybe it is looking for, to not consider a waiting
Hmm.
node as a node with no capacity. Maybe I can try to understand how cluster autoscaler works and drop some comments. I'll take an action item.
Yeah, because cluster autoscaler is a configuration change. Any, for example, let's say that like if if based on a controller, like somehow we are able to add a patch to the cluster autoscaler or something, but it would need a restart, right? Because the configuration, it's not reading from a config map or anything. It's basically like on their configuration, so it would need a restart anyway. So yeah, I think the simplest would be to hard code this. I think alternatively, we should allow all the readiness taints to, I guess, match the startup taint prefix. It's kind of like it would go in different directions than what would work for both the controllers.
Okay. I think I have
Yeah,
some clarity, but I'll still learn how
sure.
cluster
Yeah.
autoscaler
Uh,
works.
I was just like munging through their code. So if you find an alternate or easier way, we could take this with SIG auto scaling. Definitely, they would have better suggestions. Based on my quick discussions, they're okay with this configuration change, but we need to basically like uh, bring this to SIG auto scaling meeting sometime. I see Avinash added one comment. Could you do they have a generic exclusion logic? Could you clarify what do you mean by that, Avinash?
Yeah, so since we were thinking of adding an hard-coded config, I was wondering if they have something which is very generic for other controllers or other components of in the ecosystem.
Hmm. So sadly, no. I looked at their custom. If let me show this. I don't know. I don't like to show code over this thing, but uh, they have different cloud provider specific setups. That's for like API for working with scale ups, and they have some processes. And one of the custom processor, they work with CSI processor individually, DRA individually, and things like that. So yeah, I don't see like a generic way to allow certain things. I looked at Cilium's configuration. Arnab may already know here. He looked into that documentation as well. Um, but the thing is that like Cilium suggestion was also to pass the configuration uh, into cluster autoscaler as well. So I don't think like there is a generic way with other components or other controllers as far as uh, I have dug in so far. Do you have anything to add, Adam, since you already looked at this?
Yes, Ajay. So when I was looking into it, I just figured out that they do have a like taint that they can use to make the I mean a fixed prefix for auto scaling, so they could do it via the same key, that is the agent not ready taint, and then we could add the readiness.k test IO network not ready. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing that you spoke about, I would need to dig in some more to
Okay,
get a
okay,
better understanding about it.
all right. Yeah, I think like yeah, that I think so far the configuration is a only viable path, but we definitely should bring this to Zig scaling. We'll follow up with them definitely, and if needed, they could make that code change in their code base and see if they have any reviews or follow up on that. Um, I also wanted a quick update. Add a quick update. I had a KEP suggestion. We discussed this already. The wildcard tolerations. Um, so we don't want like every redness stain to be like explicitly tolerated, right? So we discussed we could have a prefix-based toleration, allowing like wildcard as a way to gather all the readiness taints. But anyway, um, so that kept seems like is a duplicate effort to another kept someone else in the community has been driving, which I think could be more generic. I didn't get a chance to link it here, but um, it's a cell-based matching, so the user would be able to write, for example, taint dot starts with so far. So uh, I think it would work for us instead of uh, say adding tolerations like this. Uh, so they would add something like this, which I guess like is also okay. But I think like it's still going through the review cycle. The SIG scheduling is busy this season. They have the um, workload aware scheduling commitments. So likely will not get into 1.36, but this is something we could follow up, or like if someone has time, we could like touch upon the other 500 cup and review and see like if any questions or anything that we need to uh, like keep the ball moving. We could basically follow up on that. Um, that's I think uh, mostly yeah. There was another one. We discussed this. I think we discussed this last time. The scalability test. Uh, we looked at the endpoint use case. Uh, Kubernetes has this endpoint and endpoint slice uh, objects. Endpoint used to have IP address for each of the node it's being managed. I think like it's similar to how rule.status is what we have today. So what happened was that like when the cluster capacity is like going beyond uh, I don't know, like 15,000, 50,000. I don't know what's the current number. The endpoint object kept growing, and there is a strict limit in etcd that the CRD cannot be more than uh, 1.5 MB. Now this can be not strictly uh, like adoption blocker for us. We know that the status report needs to be refactored a bit, um, because like for us it is not blanket all the node in the cluster, right? We would have like label matching, and user could basically still circumvent like scalability limitation, or like it's per rule how many nodes can be mapped. If they create a rule per node pool or something, or if they create a uh, label selection differently, for example pool 1 and pool 2, they could still work around this if there is any issue we face. But still we want to understand where do we hit this barrier. So Karthik is looking to run this scalability test. I suggested him that we could use Quark. Quark is basically a simulation-based. Um, it's a node simulation project, and that is done by SIG Scheduling. I think it's a SIG Scheduling sponsored project. So we already have this script in our project. There are some Quark scripts that we maintain to scale pods, sorry, to scale nodes in kind cluster today. But I didn't get a chance to like run this in a bigger like 1,000 node or 2,000 node and see how the controller reacts to it, like responds to it, if there is any delay, if there is any failures on the rule status and things like that. So Karthik offered to help with that, and if need be, we can follow up if any action item need to be handled on the API side. Bringing everyone on the same page. I think this one is from the Slack. They reached out. The QRED is going for a V2 um, design, and they wanted to integrate with the node readiness controller mechanism. QRED seems to be. I'm not like much familiar with. I'm not a user of this project before, but it seems to be like managing individual node reboot, and it seems to be like pretty popular. I'm just like sad I don't know that because I haven't used it, but they are going for a redesign and they want to manage this externally with taint, and this fits nicely because like node readiness controller would then help them taint and untaint the node. The agent that they are running inside the node, which is QRED, just need to report reboot required or not. So they could separate the status reporting and taint management. But I think that they just gave an initial comment. We probably would need to work with them if they need to, like, if they need our help onboarding them, or if they need any design discussion, integrating node readiness controller with them. But yeah, like we will follow up if anyone wants to, help take a look at this. Happy to, connect you with. I think they are already at the Slack, so you could follow up with the maintainer. Thinking of that, we should also look into how other project integrations could happen with node readiness controller. I think like Arnab had looked into two components like Cilium and Falco. And I'm sorry I'm holding you on that, Arnab, because I want us to drive these discussions with the
Yeah.
community as well, because both of them are open source community. Uh, I think like one thing we could do is like create an issue on the, for example, Cilium, and follow up with them. Like, if the approach looks good to them, or maybe if we can create a code change on Cilium that, like, with a flag, Cilium would itself post a status, or Falco itself would post a status that Falco, based on whatever they say is the right, like, health assessment, they could send a node patch, right? I'm thinking that, like, that could um, be a better integration story for node readiness controller. At least, like, I think we could start an issue, and if they just suggest, yeah, this endpoint, this healthy endpoint, this is the way we report health, you could use this to capture that, then we could write a blog out there in their project, or we could, like, create a example documentation in our project. I think that way it could benefit the ecosystem better. That's my, like, 2 cents. I think we cannot scale if we have to integrate every project by ourselves. But as we start, like, we could just have some, um, I would call this integration patterns with some of the like, projects that we see that could benefit, obviously, or something that could we could be, like, used as high examples that could be leveraged for like other components by the users for integrating their own components. Yeah, no.
Yes, Ajay. So when I was going through the code base, so there I saw that Falco already has a condition called Falco ready. So can we not
Hmm.
use that condition in our node readiness controller logic?
Yeah, we can do that definitely. If Falco already has node condition reporting, I think that would be ideal. We should use that
Mhm.
condition and map it to our rule. And I mean, I think that would be like, exactly what we would expect the component to do, right? So yeah, I think
Okay,
if you already found that, we could definitely follow up on that, and we could let them know. I think Falco has a blog. We could write a blog on them on how it could work with node readiness controller once we run that integration on our side.
okay.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anub. Yeah, I think that's mostly from me. I see some more updates here. Do folks wanna talk up?
I added, okay, I don't know if I'm in the line, but I added one. I'll just quickly
Hmm.
talk about that. That's something from last week's agenda.
Hmm.
We logged, we needed help with somebody testing Cat 4.1 I have time now.
Oh,
So
great.
I
Okay.
just wanted to bring it on the agenda today and maybe quickly get a few uh, items on what areas we need to test, like what exactly we are looking to test, and then I
Okay.
made sure that I record my testing
Thanks,
accordingly. Yeah.
Priyanka. I want to basically see this as two things. First is that everywhere we mention that node readiness controller would cleanly integrate with existing, like, architectures, basically, like, node problem detector could report conditions, right? So npd, there is no how anywhere, so we should basically, like, have an npd plugin. We can even refactor the like, condition reporter today, or we could create a new one. So the condition reporter plugin, uh, like, node condition reporter plugin as a custom plugin, if it would run with NPD, how it would look like, right? That's basically uh, the first one. And when this pod API is available, this plugin could directly get the, for example, imagine there is a kube proxy or a DNS that needs to be ready. Now, this plugin could directly talk to kubelet using the pod API. It need to pause whatever the pod API. I don't know. I don't remember the input params, but it need to specify its interest in watching these specific pods or components, so that it could get watch events whenever there is a change in status of kube proxy or DNS. This plugin would know, okay, like, this is failing, or this is ready now, and then npd plugin could respond back as a status. So it could basically, like, report the condition as a node condition. So that's a high level idea. There are improvements we can make, but I think that like this would be the one-liner, like NPD plugins. NPD is already running on the node, or imagine that like it's a client for the pod API, so that like the pod API information can be lifted up as a node condition by NPD. That's the goal. Yeah.
So the requirement there is to test how NPD in in integration with NRC works today,
Yeah.
and see if we can make use of getting the pod watch events
Yeah.
from that slash pod API endpoint and make
Right.
NPD react to that. Okay. And
Yeah.
then NRC in turns pick up that from NPD. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes,
Roughly.
your understanding is correct. I just wanted to add a minor thing. The pod API is not available today. It's a pull request. The KEP is merged. It already went through an alpha. I don't know if it's still in alpha. We discussed this last time. But whatever implementation they have, we want to review if that will work with our uh, with our shape. So basically, like if NPD is a plugin, sorry, if NPD is a client to the pod API, will it work for us? We want to establish as the trusted way, or like it's a pattern for reporting node readiness conditions on the node, because uh, now we don't have to deploy multiple daemon sets or need to manage different things, right? So that's my interest in this. And
Okay.
quick add while we are discussing here. Um, we don't have an NPD. Yeah, like I said, like we don't have an NPD plugin at all. There was this was basically actually a issue on the NPD project. How networking components like kubeproxy and DNS can be probed by NPD. So my thinking was we could use the pod API. So we could leverage that to discuss with the NPD maintainers.
Yeah. And I do see the 4188 cap is going alpha
Mhm.
2 this cycle.
Oh,
And
okay.
there is ongoing at least review, code review as of 5 hours back. So um, I'll do some testing. Yeah. Just to
Okay.
maybe understand it. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Priyanka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, I think I also found this can be proved. I added the issue here. I had some thoughts on evolving NPD, how NPD could doesn't need to run a when a pod API is available, right? So what would be the natural integration for an external client or entity? If there is a gRPC endpoint, then it should be a client that should be able to listen on that. So I was thinking that uh, this should be a feature in NPD itself, so it could directly talk to kubelet. But I think um, we can discuss that after the pod API lands, because now it won't sell if you do that. So maybe once you've done that, you would have an idea of like how it should look like in Kubernetes with NPD like directly talking to kubelet, or it doesn't need to be NPD, any client. Uh, Let me rephrase that. NPD like doesn't need to be kubelet, any external server, if they want to a component, for example, DRA driver, if installed directly on the node, it can directly talk to NPD to raise a condition, or it could be a centralized a condition reporting entity. So I was imagining like that, but we could discuss that like after. I think like if we bring up that idea now, it would be like diluted. We could bring it later, because this solution is not available in Kubernetes today. Did I make it clear? I think I uh, probably distracted away from the.
Uh, no, I think I got some basic understanding of
Okay.
where we are going.
Yeah.
And I honestly did not know that the pod API had not landed yet. So uh, I'll still regardless see
Okay.
what it is bringing, and maybe do at least one rough testing and
Sounds
report
good.
back if it is doing what we are wanting to do.
Sounds good. Thank you, Priyanka. Avinash, you have something here. Do you want to?
Yeah,
talk about
so
it?
I was just briefly looking into DRA because I was very new to DRAs and all those things. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that maybe that is my understanding that they do not have a node status as of today. So any DRA driver that comes up, you do not get a node status. And while our controller only works on node status. So uh, like how are we planning to integrate with the DRAs and all those things? Are we using some middleware component that puts up the node status for us?
Um, so DRA driver is basically DRA is a how do I put it? It's the driver itself is implemented by the hardware providers, right? If, for example, if NVIDIA is giving one, the DRA driver is implemented by NVIDIA for their devices. Any device that needs integration natively to the kubelet would need to write their own driver. So the driver should now have a way to report its condition, or it should at least have a way to expose health. Let's say like NVIDIA wrote their own DRA driver, they should have a health C endpoint, let's say, and we know how to like look health check and report that as a node condition, maybe NPD or something else, right? So the important thing that needs to do that need to happen is that the example NRA driver, the example DRA driver that we have in the Kubernetes official repo should report a node condition. Let's say like DRA driver ready after installed, right? So that this could basically serve as an example of like how condition reporting like could help. I think that like that we have to do. I remember like talking with the DRA maintainers back when this was a KEP, and they agreed that like example driver could do that. So that's something we can do. To answer your question on the resource claims, resource claim is like basically consuming the devices, consuming what the DRA, let's say like DRA driver, NVIDIA DRA driver, like bootstrapped on the node, it would basically announce that 8 GPU devices are available on the node. And resource claim is basically to consume the available devices. So we cannot like check the
Oh,
health,
oh,
yeah, because the consumption may not have started, right? So we cannot basically like decide based on the claim the driver is ready. So
yeah.
that's
I
something.
think I just wrote incorrectly. It's not resource claim. I think when you have the drivers up, you give something resource an array of resources, right? And the pod
Oh,
makes a
okay.
claim. So forgot that name.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I think that like that is a good um yeah, that is one way. So if the resources are registered on the API, then you could query the API to know like this node has this driver installed. That's how basically like CSI does it, right? CSI, once it's registered, uh, CSI drivers don't report. I don't know, maybe I'm talking too soon. They may report some health endpoint, but when an external entity needs to know whether CSI driver is installed, API will have a CSI node object. So I think that's a roundabout way to look at it. If something on the node can directly talk to DRA driver, that would be straightforward. But yeah, if it is an external control or something, then for example, GPU operator needs to know. It can look up the resource slices, yes, resource slices uh, on a node, and it can report it ready. Did I like clarify that thought, Avinash?
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. But the question follow-up question would be do we work with the DRA example team to come
Right.
up with that kind of an example where somehow it creates node status.
Yeah, I think we have to create that for change. We could update the example DRA driver to report like DRA driver example driver is ready, uh, ready or something like that. Some better name than this, some condition on the node. Then I think we could leverage that example to show in our docs. Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for bringing this up. I also I was following Keps this season. So I found that the map is going GA. I don't know how to bring the bullet back over there. Okay. What MAP that we leverage in some of our auto injection. It's going GA, so I think that that doesn't need to be any allow listing needs. It's just that existing clusters won't work without um, without without the cluster updating to recent version. So Priyanka was reviewing this auto tolerations. I didn't get a chance to get to that. So maybe since we are little close to the end time, we could discuss reviews. And if we have anything thoughts around there, we could probably discuss and gather that now. Priyanka, I know you already reviewed this. Do you have any thoughts on that? Um,
Yeah. I mean, on that particular PR, I think uh, it is in a good shape to merge, minus a few review comments needs addressing regarding specifically the RBAC situation there. I think the
mhm,
RBAC in the PR right now are too open, and
mhm.
they need to be narrowed down. Or in fact, I think uh, yeah, we do not need any extra RBAC for this particular. We already have existing
Okay.
RBAC roles, and that is what I commented to the PR author. So I
Okay.
think we are good. We just need addressing those comments.
Okay.
Other than that, I tested it. It works. I also, I think, left a very minor comment on uh, what is it? Minutely fixing the map expression that we are using to auto inject toleration, because right now there is a way if somebody wants to inject a toleration which is like tolerate everything, empty toleration, that is working with the regular expression we are using, the expression we are using in the map, in the PR map policy
Mhm,
in the PR. But I think I dropped a comment around that, and that should fix it. Yeah, I
mhm.
think we are good to merge it at least. And
Okay.
once the open from my side, um, yeah.
Okay.
And then another one on the another PR that I was looking at was Avinesh's refactoring
Mhm.
uh, of all the components, and mainly the uh, cert manager and
Webhook.
webhook. Yeah,
Mhm.
I did put a comment there, and I don't think that scope to this particular PR, but a general question: how are we going to handle deployment of all these components once we have started uh, the bootstrap the cluster with a tainted node? Should we also add tolerations on these components so that they actually goes on the node without getting into a pending set? Because I tried doing that uh, just by chance one time, and like I started up a cluster with a taint on it, and then I tried to do a customized deploy, and then it did not go anywhere because um, yeah, the node had a taint on it. So how do we handle deploying all the components? At least we are adding under our config customization config folder, because I think those, at least from NRC side, we want them, or we suggest that you can use them, and our controller itself won't block deploying those components. So we need at least addressing at some point how they get deployed without getting blocked by NRC. That is one of the common, but I don't think that's scope for this PR. Maybe a follow up on that. Um, yeah.
Got it.
From PR review side, I think those were the few comments. Yeah, map I think is good. It works. Another thing, I think you had a comment on that map PR again. Sorry, I'm circling back between two PRs. You asked if in the absence of that config map,
Yeah.
yeah, the daemon sets are blocked or not. Yes, they are blocked uh, if the config map does not exist. So the way the PR is proposing right now is PR added an empty config map, like in that the place where we are adding a map policy and a policy binding
Hmm.
right next to that. There is an empty config map at the very moment when we deploy map and map binding. There is an empty config map created. I was not sure why do we need that empty config map, so I tried to
Hmm.
delete that. And then the behavior I saw was so the logic proposed by that PR is the way every time there is a new node readiness role created, it kicks off uh, either a creation or updation of that config map. So if it does not see a config map, it will create one, and then it will
Hmm.
add all the tains into the list. The only problem is if somebody did not create a node readiness rule, and
Got
before
it. Hmm.
that they, yeah, so then the pods will stay in pending state. So the way I think the author has addressed that is by making sure we have an empty config map in the first place. I don't know if that is how everyone
Hmm.
handles it, but that presence of empty config map handles it, because I think the way we have written the map policy deny whatever, I don't remember the exact field, but then it does deny it. Okay, it does not put the daemon sets into pending state. It just not that is, I think, wrong. It does not even admit it. It says blocked by the policy, and it does not even create a object for that. So I think I recorded that in a comment.
Got it.
What's the
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks for digging deep into this. Yeah, my thinking on the empty config map was that um, so if there was no config map present, would like all the daemon sets would be blocked. I think that's what you confirmed that it would. But since the manifest deploys an empty daemon set scoped for this node readiness controller, then it's a non-issue. So they already handled it by including this in the manifest. However, this is an empty config map, so the operator should not delete it. But I think like that's a risk with any installation. If they try to modify it or change it, then there's a risk. We probably could add a comment on the empty config map on why it is needed. And you said like node readiness tool would update the select config map or create one if it is not needed. I think that makes sense. I can take a second look at it today. I think that like we could get this in if that looks good, because map also is going to GA. Right time to also get this in. I think if there is a volunteer for driving the next release, I think Avinash had some good work on the webhook and the metrics. We could try to prepare the next ship. I think it would be a good time. I think we could even split this into two to not bring all the features in one release, because it would help us like rollbacks and things like that. Shipping frequent is better. Um, if someone else tries this, I would also know if there is any what is a gap or permission gap if we need to document a capture, because Priyanka did it last time and I understand that she has more superpowers, so she probably
I mean,
wouldn't
like,
have known.
yeah, I have, but I did not use it, and I
Okay,
didn't
okay,
want to.
got it. Yeah,
So I would say it that way. Maybe, yeah, like if Avinash or Nav you try it, then we can make
yeah,
sure that we have at least a bunch of people other than Ajay
right,
to have those permissions, and then we can drive it in
yeah,
maybe different time zones.
yeah. I think the goal is that if there is more permissions needed, at least we should know that how we should handle the release. We can work together, like if we need to like raise a request and like coordinate with folks who have permissions to drive that, but we should know what are the flow updates we need to handle on the uh, release process. Uh, yeah. But back to you, Avinash. You have one more question. Sorry for holding you.
Yeah, just on the same topic, I think I'll try and read through the release documentations, and maybe once I have the some understanding about it, I'll share up in the group and we can proceed with the release. I'll take that as an AI for
Okay.
me. Other than
I
that, the PR that we were looking, the webhook one, I think we got the LGTM, so it should be merged. And there's one comment that you made recently, which is the replace use of replacement. Um, and I just wanted to describe that issue over here. So basically, we cannot use replacements
Mhm.
since each of the components work individually. Adding a replacement in individual components will not propagate the prefix of NRR that we usually have in our services, and adding it in the default config couples the certificate angle for both metrics and webhook, which can in actual be deployed individually and not at all at the same time. So a replacement was the idea, but it had limitations to it. So and it has to do with the DNS name angle only. So it was not propagating when you are running replacements in individual components.
I see. Uh, so I think only comment I would have is that we probably wouldn't want to disturb the name. The name can be anything, right? I mean, it can be another controller or something. I think hard coding that with prefix like how you did, like totally makes sense to me. But some things would be configurable in the future, especially when we have Helm. For example, think about namespace. That's very like common to have. For example, some providers could run like critical component like this on the kube system to make sure that like their quota policies and like controller needs to be scaled based on number of nodes or things like that. So they would want this in a more uh, like secure namespace than other for policy decisions and things like that. So namespace is one of the things that need to be configured, and I don't know what else. I think like this also brings up the um, like identifying the variables in our manifest. That's something that we need to do. I'll add this here. Uh, Identify the variables in the deployment path for the controller, because someone has raised a PR for Helm. That's a good thing that like we started looking into that, because it would avoid this integration every time like overlays like we get into one hiccup or the other that we try to like manage. So if we decide a direction that's more acceptable, like if Helm is the future, then it would help us manage this easier, I would think. So yeah, like long story short, I think we should identify the variables in the deployment path, and someone could review that PR, and like if we have suggestions, we could guide them on how to get this in a shape that's more commonly acceptable, or that's easy to fit for most places. I think like Sriram is not here. He also offered to take a look at Helm, but Avinash, if you have some thoughts on that, feel free to review that PR, and we could follow up offline on that. Yeah, I see more hands up. Please. I don't know who was first, Priyanka or Arnav.
Yeah, I think I dropped my hand, so by mistake. I can go super quick. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the replacement thing. Uh, if NRR prefix is the problem, I feel we can drop that. If that allows us to be more flexible, that's just my suggestion. If just the prefix is the problem, um, because yeah, the more flexible we make it, the easier it is for anybody who is using it to not go and dig up where all the stuff is hard coded and then fix it. I think hard coded stuff makes it easier for us who knows the context, but then very hard for other people who don't know where like those values are coming from to debug. Um, i uh, I had a bunch of questions around many other things. So, Arnab, do you have anything on this topic? If yes, then please go ahead. I will ask again.
No, Priyanka, I think you can go ahead. I just had a question relating to a PR which I just raised, and I just wanted to sync up on some of the conversation. So I think I can take it up at
Go
last.
ahead. Go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
Okay. So, Ajay, I think this was related to the comments which you've made related to one of my PR, and I did make changes based on the PR. So, but I just wanted to know if I'm going down the right road, so I can paste my PR in the chat.
Mhm.
I think you added 4 comments. I did work on all of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks. I
I
think I could take a look at this definitely today. Thanks for iterating on this. Um,
yeah.
let me quickly take a look on your recent update uh, and yesterday. Okay. Yeah, this is what I was thinking, having the right prefix, basically following how the Falco manages this, and I think like this you also addressed. Yeah, this looks good to me.
Mhm.
And you today you mentioned that Falco itself reports a condition.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, regarding that, I just rechecked it again, and I think Falco does not natively expose a Falco ready condition. I was confusing it with Cilium, which sets
okay.
network unavailable equal to false flag when ready.
Oh
So I
yeah,
got
yeah.
confused between the two.
Got
Yeah,
it. Okay, okay. Yeah. Yeah, this looks fair. I think it's in a good shape. I will take a look at this PR like after this call or before tomorrow. And like sorry for holding you for so long,
uh,
and thanks for iterating on
no
this.
worries. Yeah. And also, I'll have a look at the release process as well, and because this is something which is comparatively new to me, so I'll have a look at it, and then this is something that I'm interested to work on as well. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much, Arnav.
Yeah.
You could work with Avinash, and
Yes.
if either of you would have time, like please start the issue and we could
Sure.
take it from there. Go ahead, Priyanka.
I'm sorry, we are like past time. Can I take 10 minutes? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The on the release thing, uh, is it going to be helpful if we put a quick cadence just for us? It's like, okay, every month we are going to do a release, so we know, okay, we ask for hands raised who's going to run the release every month on a set date or at least a set week, and we cut the release with whatever is in the project.
That's I think that's something good we could plan. I think like right now we are more on the good pace of development. So more frequent changes are happening, and I think like a monthly release or something like that, or even bi-weekly for that matter, totally makes sense because I see now that like we have more changes that for example metrics should have been a release already, and I think like with the webhook changes, it could have been another release as a follow-up because incremental improvements would also show velocity on the project, and it would also show if someone tests this, it should not be like a surprise, oh so much changed. It should be like gradual. So I agree with keeping up a good cadence, at least now in the phase, as we are developing more. But if we feel that the changes are not, at least let's rephrase it like this: every bi-weekly some release shepherd would check or review the changes and take a judgment, can you do a release and create a release, and if this doesn't need to be, we could skip this and do a check on the next bi-weekly. How about that?
Yeah, yeah. I just feel like if we know we are looking at frequent releases, and we can at least have
Yeah,
people helping us with the releases in advance. We don't have to do it like
yeah,
so. I think yeah, bi-weekly or a monthly release, uh, both
sounds good.
is fine, whichever we decide on. Another
Yeah,
thing, I really wish if we ship Avinesh's current PR with the metrics one before, because I feel there is a lot of cleaning up happening in
yeah,
this current
yeah.
PR, and that's going to make it super easy for the users to use it. So let's maybe do a release with both once this PR also lands,
Okay,
and that's really
okay. You think we could
going
club this
to really
together so to avoid
yeah,
the
yeah,
okay usability? Okay,
yeah.
that sounds fair.
Yeah. So if there is anything needed on the release cadence side, maybe I can drop a PR with just one line as like, okay, we follow a certain cadence at least for this year, and then we will revisit what we want to do once, maybe next year based on how the development is shaping. I can do a drop a PR, or maybe Avinash Arnab, if you are anyway going to look at the release for this month. Uh, Maybe feel free to do it. I can do something. Um, okay.
Sounds good.
Another one was regarding the cluster autoscaler. So I have two questions on that. Do you think that is more priority right now other than in comparison to the KEP 4188? If that is so and you need help, I can maybe pick up one of the items. We have
Yeah.
two right now. One of the items is, if I understand correctly, to see how we can make cluster autoscaler by default. Understand readiness.cadence.ios temporary details. If that is something I can maybe test it, draft a POC kind of PR to get some. If that is where you need help, I can maybe work on that first. Do you think
I think
so? That is
definitely
one.
cluster autoscaler is higher priority than pod API because if pod API lands, we still have time until 1.36 cycle to complete because the PR is evolving and the shape is changing. So pod API definitely can wait until we know the shape of it gonna be in kubelet. I can keep an eye on the KEP as a reviewer if any PR changes need to happen. But this is alpha, right? So there is still room for changes or updates. Um, if you can make it compelling enough in the next cycle. So that's totally, yeah, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
definitely is. We still have some time on it. Yeah.
I mean, I can still keep it just as a way to learn more. But
Okay.
okay, then I'll take the maybe first part of cluster autoscaler.
Hmm.
Maybe draft something for us to discuss first, and then we can propose in a PR format to
Got it.
plus
Okay.
SIG autoscaler. Okay.
Sounds good.
The other one was regarding the flag to set a timeout
Hmm.
flexibly. I just did a very cursory check, and there is something called max node provision time. At least in the one line description, it says,
Hmm.
let me read it. It says maximum time cluster autoscaler waits for node to be provisioned. So it is by default set to 15 minutes, but it can be increased to whatever we want
Oh,
it to
okay.
be increased to. I just don't know how we are going to come up with a okay, this is a time, if not 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 1 hour. I don't know how we can come up with that, but there is a flag. Maybe we can start with that flag and see if this does what we are trying to do with a new flag to make out cluster autoscaler wait for more than just 15 minutes. And
Are
then
you suggesting for testing this, or are you thinking how in a production case, how would someone know? Is, what
I
was your
was
question?
so two questions. I think we were discussing that we would need a flag because cluster
Yeah,
autoscaler would
yeah.
time out at 15 minutes. So I think first part was I think there is a flag. I don't know. I
Okay.
actually use cluster, but maybe this is something we can start with. If
Hmm.
this flag does what we are pla-
Okay,
wanting
sounds good.
cluster autoscaler to do. And the other thing that I am thinking is that this is an open question is even if we have such flag that can like point or I would say ask cluster autoscaler to wait for more than just 15 minutes, how do we come up with a or is it entirely a admin's decision? Okay, we do not want the cluster to be in a limbo state for more than 1 hour. Okay, 1 hour. That's it.
I
I
get your
think it
question
should
now.
be on the admin side, but is
Yeah.
it okay to think that way? Maybe that's
So I think that like how the admin wants to run cluster autoscaler, it's cluster specific decision, and this is a cluster autoscaler's flag. We could document that, for example, whatever a flag, if that helps that, we could document that this could be tuned for the cluster's need to how long a node readiness take to have like a smooth integration with controller or like have this work as expected in our documentation. But there isn't anything we would do other than adding a flag if what we want isn't there in CA. That's how I think about it, because how these are configured are like cluster specific decisions, and admin would need to manage that, right? And that's my thinking top of my head.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then I think like uh, if we get the hard coded thing already in the flag is secondary thing. Good to have, but I think
Yeah,
our problem will mostly be solved by hard code. Okay.
yeah.
And the
But
final thing I want to
but
say, yeah,
it
go ahead.
sorry, like, let me this node provision time, that sounds different from at least like the name of it. But yeah, thanks for digging this. Like maybe we could take a look. I mean, if you're able to find more, if this helps, I think that would that would basically like solves both of our CA cases.
Yeah, I'll start testing and report them.
Okay.
And the final thing, I did see that Helm PR also, and that's a good long PR. So I was just wanting to plus one if anyone has the time to review it, because that would definitely require spinning up the cluster and testing. So I can do that, but I wish to do cluster autoscaler thing first. So maybe by next week's next call, if it does not happen, I can also offer to help.
Perfect. Okay. If you are planning to bring this up to, if you have more things you dig and find, if you are planning to bring this up to SIG auto scaling, give me a heads up and we could take this to SIG auto scaling meeting. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I
great.
will maybe start a PR or something in my own fork with some
Okay.
testing, and I'll bring it up to this call. At least
Okay.
have you look at it, because I don't know what conversations has happened with Secret, so you can at least
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
a first round of feedback, and then we can.
Sounds good.
That's
Okay.
the plan.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you. And it's on my mind to have a code review, but I think that like most folks join here are like folks familiar with the project, but still I think like it would be on me to have a code intro. So we could do that next session. We could probably like uh see how the recording can be sorted. But anyway, we could still do that next week.
Yeah. Oh, I think like I still don't know about the design decisions we have made for NRC. So one of the things that I think came up today from Avinesh's question was DRA. Like we want DRA to emit something in node condition, because for now I understand that if DRA has like what is it? What's the term they use? Maybe publish some information about a certain device is ready. They publish them in labels or annotation. One of the ways uh, they put new labels or annotation to the node, and that's how I think that's one of the ways I know at least a node has a GPU device available, and so kind of GPU is the question is, by design is NRC only like designed to look at node conditions, and that's the only way we'll lift taints from the node, or that design also is flexible, or no, like it is supposed to be coming, the signal is supposed to be coming from node conditions only. Maybe just for my.
That's a deeper discussion. We're already at 1.5 hour point, but I'll quickly share my thought. So there is, so let's talk semantics way, right? Taint is something that tells the node cannot accept unless, I mean, it's been tolerated. Taint is basically it says that it's repelling certain things. So if it is not ready, it would repel all the nodes. So and condition basically is express, node is expressing this is what I observed, like I mean this is what's on the node. So status or conditions make sense. And about like, why don't we use labels or annotations to bypass this? Label is something that groups and selects. It's a semantic for selection or grouping certain objects, and node labels are basically for grouping objects. So labels are out of the picture, but annotations is an interesting thing. We actually use annotation in node readiness controller. For example, bootstrap only taint, bootstrap only enforcement mode. How it is achieved today is that like after the initial taint management is complete, after the initial uh, taint is lifted, for example, certain component is ready, the taint is corresponding taint is lifted, the node is added with an annotation, bootstrap completed for this, so on. So that next time when that node condition is evaluated, it know that this is a bootstrap only taint and I evaluated this condition, so I don't need to look at that or manage this taint. So that's how we use annotation today. Annotation is basically for metadata. So there is a way for injecting metadata onto CRD, custom objects, right? There is no, either it can be a config map, but config map is a semantic that says like, is a configuration for a component in Kubernetes. So annotations like kind of like diverge from that in the way that this is about the component, this is about this entity, like the entity here is node. So annotation, nodes annotation is a way to capture this node has this metadata about whatever, like this has met. So that's where that annotation fits there. So now adding what is observed into the metadata, that's a hack. We could do something like that, but I think that like in any clean API design, intent has to be explicit. If you hide it in like kind of override or hacks, that will work, but that would basically in a way dilute the design. Every time when something else comes up, it needs to be patched for a hack, and uh, in the long run it would then like have it harder to reason what the controller is, because like the API is not clear. That's my personal how I would take it.
No, I
Yeah,
agree. I mean, I just wanted to understand, like by design, we
yeah,
if anything has to integrate with NRC, we need them to emit the
yes,
signal to NRC via node condition, and that is by design. So that is how we are going to
yeah,
ask
yeah,
whoever is
right,
interested to use NRC, they would need at least to give us a node condition, like the signal
yes.
via. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So
that's by
my
design.
thinking is that the condition is on the node, right? So the component, for example, Cilium, is already what it does today is that it says network unavailable equal to false, and it changes to network available equal to true as soon as the Cilium finds that it can configure pod network. That makes sense. That
Yeah.
completely
Hmm.
like it's what it is. This is what I observed on the node, and this is what I transitioned because now the network is possible irrespective of
Hmm.
who observes it or who consumes this condition. What the API says is correct, right? I think that like
Hmm.
that's the right way to look at it. And node readiness condition is basically uh, just watching these conditions on the node. No component is sending the condition to node readiness controller, right? I think the phrasing better
Yeah.
fits it. Node readiness controller is expecting node to have certain conditions, like what it has observed.
Okay.
So that's what
Yeah.
it looks. Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry
I
for
think
being
I have a
prudent
lot
here,
of
but I
questions,
just
but no, no. I think that's what I want to discuss maybe in like that one call where we dedicate just discussing this thing.
sounds good. Yeah, we'll keep
And
that
thank
definitely
you.
for next. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I have one follow-up question, but I think I'll take it when Abhinesh works on the DRA side of that example side of how do DRA example driver post the condition or not. But the question is just for the sake of completion, do we already have a node condition that can take that kind of signal coming from components, or we will need to add a new node condition in the
yeah.
API? Uh, yeah, thank you. I think we are way over time. I'll
Okay.
record the
All right.
question for next time.
Yeah, we will save them for next time. Thanks so much. I will stop the recording.